Welcome everybody to this week's Reviewers Weekly, the Reviewers Weekly workshop. Glad everybody did made it, and I am jumping right in with the very first topic I would love to pick your brains on. It is not specifically a review just yet, but it is something I'm currently working on that I could see to become very challenging when it comes to reviews. So bear with me as I need to explain you the technical challenge very briefly first. So I know you're all aware with the GitLab UI library and the repository and the things going on in there. And they're currently, and this is what the spike is about, is some restructuring, refactoring, whatever you want to call it, planned. Dual chat is kind of related to it. Basically, the idea in very brief terms is dual chat and many oh no, dual chat at the moment is currently a part of the GitLab UI library. The idea, there's like historical reasons, but there is no technical reason why it should be that. It was a bit more like, not to say a political, but rather like an efficient one. Like when Duo Chat was created, things were in a hurry, and it was just the easiest way or the more efficient way to become a part of GitLab UI. That worked well for many milestones, but we're now kind of seeing the downsides with those features, picking up velocity, and we're seeing like blocked release cycles over and over again, and having issues dealing with like breaking changes, stuff that just comes along with those two libraries that shouldn't be merged together are currently merged. So what could be the potential solution to it? Well, easier said than done, but it is basically separate GitLab UI as we know it and create another NPM library, GitLab Duo UI, which then has a GitLab UI dependency, but that is for another thing. We discussed about this with a couple of folks, and the path we're currently trying to go with that is to enhance our current GitLab UI repository and give it like a monorepo abilities, you could probably say. Working with Yarn workspaces, then cut the two libraries where we need to make the cut, and then basically from one repository ship those two new fresh npm libraries there. So while the technical question behind that is kind of clear is a big word, but it's becoming clearer the more I look at it, and the more code I write about it. Like the first iteration, and that should be the first step we'll be speaking of this, is basically to enhance the current GitLab UI repo, make it a mono repo, and GitLab UI as a whole, including Duo and whatnot, make it a part of this new monorepo architecture. So far, so good. I've now said many things. Was that understandable? Are you folks with me?
Um, could you please spend a few more minutes on explaining the challenges we are having with releasing the GitLab Duo with the GitLab UI? I know that we had discussions about that when we first introduced that Duo into GitLab UI. But now, as we gain experience, what are the particular issues with that?
The biggest issues that we're currently having and is we are having more and more consumers of Dual Chat and GitLab UI. So there were like browser extensions and all of these things. And the biggest challenge is whenever we see a break-in change that might be coming from GitLab UI or from GitLab Duo UI, that is basically blocking the release pipeline completely at the moment. So we are running in more and more of these inefficiencies of somebody working on a GitLab Duo break-in change, or and another GitLab UI break and change coming in, and all of a sudden this is kind of, you're either blocked or this is on your plate, even though it's completely unrelated. But it is now for you to figure how to bump up to the next major version. Otherwise, you're just gonna be stuck. And like for example, couple of months ago, we just had on one of those break and changes GitLab Duo integration MRs. We had, hey Angelo.
Yeah, how's it going?
Actually, oh my gosh. Sorry to call you out at the beginning, but I'm currently explaining what have been the issues with GitLab UI and Duo UI being merged together in terms of release circle, and you are one of those people suffering from it. So if you want to add to it, please go ahead. But basically, like an example, I could oh gosh, sorry. Angela, could you please I need to take an important call. I'll be in 1 second. Just go ahead and let Cos know about his issues.
Oh, okay.
Um,
How far did you guys get?
Yannick has described the overall picture and desire to not to rely on each other on the release cycle. I
Yeah.
was wondering what are the other, reasons and experience with those two libraries being merged, being in one, one repo, one release cycle. So what are the challenges with that?
I would say it's also an anti-pattern in a way. Like, you think of a library like a if like that's why I think the monorepo approach makes sense. Um, if you think of any other like UI component library, like if you look at what we have right now in GitLab UI, excluding Duo stuff, that makes sense. But when you start like adding like full-blown components that build off of the components in there, that's just anti-pattern to any other, like you would, if you were to do it in any other open source way, right? People would be like, what are you doing? Right? They would be like, no, make this a separate package that if you want to use like a component library, then use that component library, right? So that was kind of the main thing. And I think it'll just be beneficial like overall for Duo in general. There's like other benefits that they mention, like we can do a lot easier regression testing. We can probably move a lot of the theme overrides over to that area. Um, like a lot of the testing in the screenshot stuff that it benefits the original one. We can move that from VS Code land and JetBrains land over to there. And um, yeah, I think there's a lot of benefits. Um, but obviously
Mhm.
there's also trade-offs, right? So like having to move a ton of the code around and the actual work itself and any other issues like the token issue that like the CSS global issue that Tristan brought up in the thing. I don't know if you got to look at the issue yet, but
And
definitely give it a read because everybody
um,
had really good points, like some from foundations and stuff. So, um, but yeah, and I
yeah,
all I'm speaking is from my experience. I'm new. I joined in February, so that's I'm already coming in and
you
getting in hot water. But I guess,
you have fresh eyes on all of that. Uh, yeah, thanks, Angelo, for explaining the concern. I do remember when we were adding the Duo chat to the GitLab UI, a lot of people had concerns with that because it's a like functionality specific, it's a feature specific
yeah,
set of components and code. We are adding to a reusable library of components we have. And I think at the time, as Yannick said, it was a more of a process hack than a
yeah.
architectural
It
decision.
makes way more sense, like given like all the background, 100% makes
Mm,
sense.
mm.
Um, I think the main point is like at this point, like we have to make changes every week, if
Yeah,
anything,
yeah,
or like every couple of days to it. So like it's now or
yeah,
no. Yeah. So
yeah. I think the two should have completely different life cycles because GitLab Duo, as far as I know, it's a quick release cycle and still in a early development stages while we seek for more stability with the GitLab UI libraries itself.
Yeah.
I was wondering if we want to split them, why do we want to keep them as a monorepo? What's the benefit in that? Why don't we just split them into different
That's
repos?
Yannick. That's not me. I don't have enough context or experience, so that's all Yannick.
Hey folks, sorry, some emergency daddy duties. Well, I don't really know all the context you just spoke about, but I can give an answer about why a monorepo. Why not? Kinda like not having it would give us a lot of headaches and a lot of duplicated context. Like it really feels like the monorepo is kind of the easy approach for it. So it's basically to share infrastructure, and both of these libraries they will be tied together all the time, especially with Duo having a GitLab UI dependency. That is kind of where this is coming from. So to avoid the headaches of yet another repo with all the overhead that comes along with it. So we are kind of staying close together with GitLab UI anyhow, which for Duo is not being planned.
I think it makes sense. Because like you want to piggyback on all of our storybook and screenshot tests and all of that infrastructure is helpful to, but then also as you said, that GitLab UI is a primary dependency of Duo Chat, and then Duo Chat itself is a component library that it's exposing as well. It does, when we make a change to Duo Chat, we'd really like to be notified that, oh, this is going to break. Or when we make a change to GitLab UI, we'd really like to see the effect on Duo Chat. So the fact that we own all of these, it's really helpful to keep in the monorepo because we can, if we are making like some sort of breaking GitLab UI change, we could update Duo Chat at the same time and that kind of commit. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely trade-offs of you have to solve some monorepo problems. One problem that comes to mind from a monorepo perspective is because it sounds like GitLab UI is changing quickly and Duo Chat is changing quickly. And Duo Chat doesn't necessarily need to depend on the latest GitLab UI. And that I haven't.
You were about to say something, Angela. Go.
No, yeah, I was about to say, I don't know if that's true based on what Tristan said. So I don't know if you got to see Tristan's comment in the original proposal.
There is I think I have a good answer for it, and I think both of you are right for sure. So there is this concept, this yarn, or probably also NPM concept, which is kind of cool about a peer dependency. And that does mean, so at the end of the day, let's imagine our monolith, make our lives a little easier. Our monolith does have a GitLab UI dependency, might not be latest, could be like kind of up to date.
Specify minimum version or something in the GitLab UI.
100%.
Or sorry, in the Duo Chat UI.
Yeah, and then the monolith has a GitLab UI dependency, and it also has a GitLab Duo UI dependency. And so first problem is for GitLab Duo UI, we don't want to be bringing our own GitLab UI because A, inefficient, we're going to be loading the same thing twice. B, those versions, they might be out of sync, and therefore we would get into trouble with this kind of thing. So with a peer dependency for like defining a GitLab UI peer dependency in GitLab Duo UI. This kind of makes the assumption, which basically says, whichever system I'm running in, I am assuming that GitLab UI is already taken care of. I'm kind of leaning on this for already to resolve, already to be resolved. And regarding keeping versions in match, that is probably becoming a little tedious to maintain, but definitely doable. You can on this peer dependency, you can define like version ranges, which basically means like, I don't know, 93 until next break-in or
Yeah.
whatever we want to go with. But that
Yeah.
is something, that is an approach that sounds pretty doable in practice.
The one thing that I'm wondering though, that I was trying to tell Paul about, because Tristan made the point of like the global CSS overrides and the tokens, right? How do we, I guess the peer dependency part solves that issue, because in order to, like, let's say GitLab UI makes a token breaking change like they recently did, right? When they go to upgrade it, they would have to upgrade GitLab UI, DuoChat UI as well, because then npm won't let them install the latest GitLab UI. Is that correct? Or
Because you can set a minimum version as the peer dependency. So I think as long as you can still up bump depending on like, but you can still bump the GitLab UI version unless like
And
the peer dependency symver is saying it has to be this major version, but then the next GitLab UI for some reason is a new major version. Those are, so it's a good question. And I think those are, the devil's going to be in those details of what happens when there's a breaking change in GitLab UI that causes a major version bump, but there's not one in DuoChat. That's one case. What happens?
that's what I'm wondering about.
Right, but then what happens when there's a breaking change in DuoChat? There's not one in GitLab UI. What if there's a breaking change in both of these? And what if there's a breaking change that also affected DuoChat, such that DuoChat had to update itself? And when Renovate like tries to bump and update, like I think these I think you can like make a permutation of like, okay, these are the cases, and like how is this going to affect the main project? How does this affect the VS Code extension project? And see like, okay, is this working out?
That's what I was wondering is like, would a micro front ends model realistically be the best choice in that scenario? Because then you can really have independence, but that's a lot more work, right?
It's a trade-off. I think you're gonna have a different, it's the works, you're gonna still probably work the same. It's gonna look different. I like the monorepo problems better because
it's all controlled in one thing.
Yeah, I could see this. We can all keep it all in the same storybook too. Like, so I think that kind of thing is really helpful. I'd like, because of this use case, and this is the use case that's really hard to solve when you split up the projects.
Yeah.
The use case of designer comes in and completely changes what buttons look like. You want the designer to get feedback on all of the impact of that change
immediately, right?
And including, this is how it's going to affect DuoChat. You thought it was just going to affect all the other component library stuff, but we missed DuoChat. So like keeping it in a monorepo is really helpful at giving engineers immediate feedback of, here's how I affected my library, but here's also how I affected all of my clients. And I think the monorepo I like that win is really good, because a number of times we break things.
But the peer dependency still solves the immediate problem though, because you can still make changes for DuoChat as much as you want.
Yeah, it's right. It's worth investigating, and it sounds like that's the situation we're running into, and I think it's cool. And it's not often that GitLab UI changes such that it breaks DuoChat. Like that doesn't happen. Does that make sense?
No, that's not. Well, maybe it's just a fluke, and I was only in the time that happened. But like Yannick and I spent a whole day literally trying to fix, and it was a one-line change, and we forgot to import some, or they made a Tailwind change, and we forgot to import some new Tailwind styling.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, stuff that definitely happens, and it doesn't even have to be Duo chat related. Like it's when the release pipeline is blocked because like we still need GitLab UI migration, then it is just blocked. So therefore, yeah.
I mean, here's like, I think it's a great idea, and here's going the really crazy with it is, I think it opens up the door to a lot of architectural questions that we have wrestled with when it comes to GitLab UI. The one that comes to my head is, what belongs in the component library? Is this a main project thing or a component library thing? And I love that you're saying, well, this is its own package. It's not the component library package. It's only uses the component library, so it's belongs next to it. It's all completely front end thing. But now it's okay for us to create this completely encapsulated app running in Storybook-ish there. And I can see, I mean, what other apps do something similar where they have a version in the main GitLab project and other versions elsewhere? The VS Code extension has an issue page. How cool would it be if we had GitLab
Shared
UI
issue page.
packages, and then we had Duo Chat app, issue page app, and we could run it all through Storybook. Like, I think
That's what GitHub does as far as their. I don't think they use Vue. I think they use what is it called? I forget the name of it. It's like literally isolated components, but they're all their own like
oh yeah,
JavaScript
Web components or something. But
web
yeah,
components. Yeah.
yeah. So I think it's a good pattern, and something that's worth us doing, because the more we can encapsulate like a front end application like that, such that it's decoupled from the Rails monolith and like all the spaghetti that tries to pour itself into all of our little app rule cups. I think that I think it's a good approach. I'd be really one gotcha I'd be really curious about is, I'd be not sure how peer dependencies work with workspaces. I haven't used that, and I don't know if Yarn is smart enough to.
Well, Yannick has a demo, right? You made a demo of it, right?
Yeah, but not like the peer dependency is not yet included. But to answer Paul's question, from what I've been reading, and this is only reading so far, this should be okay. And it's kind of like Jan. So the whole peer dependency idea is kind of coming from the Monorepo approach, because you usually have things that are tied very, very close together with this. So I would be very surprised if that would not work out. But in the current state of the prototype, we are having like the duplicated GitLab UI still. So that is still a to do on the list. Folks, I really very much appreciate the discussion, but though I have a very specific question actually around it regarding reviews. This is what I initially put on the agenda. So currently, my current goal is as a very first iteration, like at the moment, I very much focus on basically like the tooling and the repository work around this. So my kind of the first iteration I want to achieve is to have the GitLab UI repo restructured so it can work like a monorepo. So we have everything in place to add multiple packages, but only like with the current GitLab UI library as we know it by now as the first client. That is what I'm currently working on. Does that make sense as a first iteration? Everybody with me?
You correct me if I'm wrong. You're setting up the Monorepo, but it's a pure refactor. You're just setting up the infrastructure, but the GitLab UI is the only package in the Monorepo.
100%. And I'm not planning on creating a new repository. I'm like to keep Git history and all of that. I'm planning on, yeah, basically working on the existing GitLab UI on this. I played with it a little, and something that I can definitely tell by now is those diffs add up really, really, really quickly. So kind of getting this to review is gonna be, I have no idea how to do it, because like we need to move stuff, we need to adjust so many paths, and kind of cutting out iterations on this like is gonna be very, very difficult. So I'd be curious on on picking your brains on that. How would you try to address this?
Can we use symlinks as a quick hook? Because yeah, git move files would be easy to review, I think, but at the same time, creating a new infrastructure to handle different paths, different release cycle would be hard. Would be something that would be hard to review in one go.
What would you be planning, or kind of what problem should a symlink fix though?
Moving files and slowly adjust, adding new configs to handle the different release cycle. And I don't know if it will work.
You'll have an intermediary period, because I imagine like right now we have our top level source directory. I imagine we're actually now going to have a top level packages directory.
Yes.
The GitLab UI subdirectory, and that thing's going to have a source and stuff like that.
Very much so, yeah.
How would I do this? You know what I would do? I'd almost create another project.
Why?
I'd almost create another project and then you know, set that up.
Like a new GitLab UI project?
Yeah, something like that. And then just like
GitLab UIs.
I don't think the foundations team would like that, right?
Well, so here's something you can do. How would you do it?
Like that would maybe let's stay with that for a second. Maybe that would be a feasible approach, like creating a monorepo, actually splitting out GitLab Duo UI first, which is for sure gonna be the smaller part to do. And from then some beautiful day integrate GitLab UI as well. That could potentially be a feasible approach if we want to go with a new repo.
We are losing the history, don't we? And all the issues.
Yeah.
Issues for sure. I don't know if we could move Git history to another repo. I think there might be a way, but
well, yeah, you'd have to keep it in the Git history. But I'm concerned about like there's a bunch of merge requests in flight
for
yes. GitLab UI. So it's like, are we gonna create huge conflicts for everybody? Like, well, that's a lot of front engineering and product design team is actively touching GitLab UI.
Is there a way you can do workspaces without moving the folder?
I think you can. If we create a packages, the challenge is
because that's how language server, at least on npm workspaces, works.
Right.
We didn't move all the original source code to a new folder. We just kept the same structure. And then John just created multiple packages.
Right. The challenge is with language server, the packages are all imported by that root source, the non-package package. In this case,
the root package JSON would be modified. Is what you're saying?
We want it the other way around. We want our Monorepo package to import GitLab UI. And yes. I don't know if workspaces will work as nicely as that.
I don't, yeah, I like from the top of my head, I get for not moving the folder. Maybe that would be a valid iteration. That could be something. But I kind of currently feel strongly about this, as I wanted to have things in the package JSON. Going back there again, since these libraries are so similar to each other, you can share dependencies and like build tos and stuff between those two files, between those two projects. So it would just be a really nice structure, I feel like, to have two libraries and packages, and then on make it really clearly defined. Like everything that is on root level is shared. Everything that is within the packages folders is kind of unique to each package. So that would be
But
something that I think for
how
developing
would it
things would be
share
great.
the? I don't know how it could share the root level stuff.
It does by default, pretty much, with Yarn workspaces.
Like if I when I publish my package, if I'm
And
if,
you cannot publish your root package
right,
JSON. That has to be private.
um, but if my sub package is depending on root stuff,
Mhm,
whether it's like broken out of its, if it's doing import relative or something,
mhm.
I have a feeling when I try to publish my package, I'll have this artifact that's trying to leave the folder, you
Mhm.
know, and that might be a problem. But yeah, it's a good question. So from a review perspective, you asked, this is the code review weekly workshop. You asked from a review perspective. I'm less concerned about that because I think like you can actually just diff folders and it's like, hey, however we wanted to implement it, it's like, okay, does this make sense of the path we're going for? I'm more concerned about causing, train stopping conflicts with like the GitLab UI train is already moving. And it's like, okay, are we
Yeah.
going to are we going to stop at a train station for a little bit? And then everyone's got to
Oh,
reshape their boxes to fit with the new packages repo and over communicating that, scheduling all that is like, that's something we really want to do. Or
mm.
are there, um, are there more iterative ways that we can move over here such that
For the first iteration, and cut me off if there's something I'm not seeing, but basically working on making this repo, Monorepo, ready and moving sources to packages, other than some paths on files that you're working on, not too much should change. Well, still, I see your point. Like for the MRs and flights, and when you're working on a file, and apparently the path has changed. That sucks. Yeah, but
I feel like a
maybe
one path change is not that crazy though. Like for having to rebase, but maybe it is. I don't know.
it
yeah,
should be
If it would be
doable,
a
I
git
feel.
move, it should be fine.
I think it's gonna. I mean, that I'm not concerned about. It's like, hey, I'm not saying we can't have conflicts. I'm saying
Mhm.
we should over communicate the conflicts and just
Yeah,
anticipate these are product designers with their AMRs open. Like we
yeah.
want
There's gonna be support.
we want to have as little surprises to people that are not in the conversation of what's
Yeah.
going to happen. Talking about it though, I think symlinks is a really good idea, and I think the way that I would iteratively maybe do it, or here's an idea: if we introduce a subfolder called Monorepo or whatever, uh, and then that subfolder is what we wish our root folder was. We have the private package JSON, all of that stuff. We have a packages folder inside of Monorepo. inside of the packages monorepo, there's GitLab UI, and that's a symlink back to the root directory. Although, how do you deal with the recursion of the monorepo folder? But I would just blissfully ignore that. Hopefully, that's not a concern.
Yeah, I'm not sure you can symlink a root folder in a Git repo. That's
Oh, you can. Oh, well, yeah. No, hopefully, I'll see.
Help me out with understanding this approach. Like let's like with a new folder called Monorepo and a symlink with source. That would kind of ease the pain at the beginning, but what would be the next iteration to that? Would then be to remove the, like once everybody has kind of adjusted to it, we would remove the symlink and remove the source in root and make Monorepo the new root folder. Would that be the plan behind it? Or would
Yes.
that symlink be there to stay? No.
No, the symlink is not there to stay. It's just an
Okay.
iterative step
It's
where
just
like
a patch,
we can
basically.
set up
Yeah.
and I can and me also as a reviewer, just how I want to implement this. I can set up, this is what Duo Chat as I can set up the whole monorepo thing, and it's not even going to affect anything. We're not publishing it. We're not reading from it. It's like, okay, this is just a thing that's living on the side. We're going to set this thing up. Then I can plug in, this is how Duo Chat is going to live next to it. And then and then it's like, all right, I'm going to now rename everything. That's the last step. And now we're ready to go.
I don't, and feel free to convince me otherwise. I don't think, from what I know now, that I'm a fan of Symlink because maybe that's naive, but with the paths, I'm not too sure if that is a real existing problem currently. Like I just looked it up. It's currently around 50 open MRs to GitLab UI. Let's say 30% of them are never going to be merged because it's just draft thingies. So this is not a shocking number. Like it would be definitely be a different story on the monolith, but with the activity going on there, just kinda sounds manageable to support. That is one thing, and something that I would definitely fear with having a symlink in place is all the tooling around it. GitLab CI files, translations, Prettier, all that make files, all that stuff that is currently living in our root folder. We would then to copy and kind of build around that, and I could see that to become very complicated. That is what I fear the
Oh,
most,
so you
honestly.
feel like Symlink is going to break some of the tooling and like things that run on runners or whatever? Like,
Yeah, like let's take a makefile for example. Like with the symlink in place, I would definitely would need to have a makefile in the root of the monorepo folder. That's for sure, which I'm planning on sharing between those packages. And I wouldn't be allowed to touch it on the actual root. And that is this conflict. Let me try to open it in an editor because that then will hopefully make sense.
oh yeah, Symlinks. As long as you're not doing Windows. So, and don't just, as long as you're not doing Windows, you're fine. So yeah. I highly recommend Symlinks.
Gotcha. So to kind of visualize what I just said. Oh, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, Paul.
Well, what I want to clarify that the Symlinks just let us set up all the infrastructure in one merge request. I'm not saying that we totally are using Symlinks like in our pipelines and like I'm publishing the package and stuff. But it should allow a reviewer and the developer working on moving things to monorepo, it should allow us to verify that like, oh yeah, this is gonna work. Then the last step is get rid of symlinks. So I'm not anticipating anyone actively using the symlinks. It's just this intermediary monorepo verifying step.
Just to verify that we are fine with the release stuff, that we are fine with the how release the peer dependency stuff, and just to iron things out that we might want to adjust package JSONs and all that stuff, and that would be already a lot of reviewers' pressure to verify that all the workflows would work after this MR that we are introducing. So yeah, the idea here is to spread this into the time and give us a possibility to test things out with the release of the monorepo thing.
Mhm. Yeah, I have understood that. What I worry about is that this iteration with a symlink will actually be more work or more complex and complicated to build than the actual final iteration. And that is like this is GitLab like latest-ish master kinda. So if we would we still have a source folder in there as we know, and let's imagine for a second we would have a monorepo, and this monorepo folder then has packages in and then the packages there. If we, for example, consider this makefile, so at the end of the day, I definitely would want to have a shared makefile in the monorepo source that both packages can use and build with. So that would be the final thing. But with the symlink in place, from my understanding, I would not be able to get rid of this makefile yet. Correct? Because it's living in project source.
Would you want to get rid of the makefile?
I fear I don't want to have two to maintain. And like two different build processes, one for the like, yeah, I don't want to have two to
Well,
maintain.
I like makefiles. I'm joking, but well, but actually though, this is a project specific makefile. So like this makefile, like, is an implementation detail too of this is a GitLab UI package specific implementation.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah.
So that's the interpretation of the symlink is everything we see here is actually GitLab UI package specific and should be easily moved that way and treated that way. Like we shouldn't have to touch or change anything. It should be just a move. But to verify that is like it could be helpful if GitLab UI folder, what if, and it's crazy, but what if it was a symlink? I hate it because there's a recursive thing if you do it this way, but I think it's okay. But what if GitLab UI folder was actually a symlink up a few directories, up to the root? And
I think we
yeah, what were we gonna say?
I think we can per file, per folder, symlink that, not to create a raw recursion.
We could do that
but
too.
it would be harder to maintain.
If the recursive thing was really problematic, we could do file and folder. But yeah, so this way is like, okay, I'm not touching any of the existing GitLab UI setup because I think that should just kind of work out of the box. And in a merge request, we get to see what does that new root package look like. And if it's looking, if it looks and works good, and if I can run, if I can create a tarball archive from the monorepo, whatever the publishing script will be from the monorepo, if that's the exact same as if I run my whatever publishing script is from my legacy repo, then it's like, okay, I think we're ready for the big rename, and then we do the big rename.
I'm starting to like the idea, because one thing that I worried about or that I just understood is like I was worried about all of these config files in the root folder and how we're gonna share it. Declaring these for the moment as GitLab UI only or GitLab UI specific, full stop, and maybe we can share some of those in the future, but that is for another iteration. And if we approach it with that mindset, we can, like, it probably wouldn't hurt to, well, let's leave them here for now, or in best case, move them to packages GitLab UI, and then like in the yeah, then Monorepo soon to be root folder, kind of.
Yeah.
I get that. That would ease a lot of problems for sure, or that would kind of make this more iterative.
Yeah, just to be clear, in the first iteration, we won't have that dual UI thing, and we won't have a make file as a separate thing. We will just move things to the monorepo / packages /
We would just
UI.
move stuff around and adjust paths for the moment. Yeah, that's about, and like a little bit of overhead with like another package JSON, Yarn workspaces defined, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of, okay, once we've done the big rename, what will end up happening is this new root package. We'll have packages GitLab UI. But we really shouldn't have anything else then. Like there should have been that's one pure refactor step. I guess it sounds like the next step will be we're going to try to pull Duo UI out of it. But I think what's going to be interesting when we do that, some of the integration like tests, which would be our storybook and things, it's going to be really tempting. I'm going to really want to, but this affects, this is going to affect the rest of the team that works on this. Storybook should probably be its own package, such that it imports stories from other packages that creates one single storybook. So I imagine, and like imagine some of our tests, like our integration tests, could be a separate package if we want to include Duo UI in it or something, unless we want to create just a Duo storybook and along next to instead of having one storybook, we could have two storybooks, whatever. I don't know.
Well, I definitely haven't fully thought this through yet, but I have to admit, like the idea of having it all in one storybook, that did not come to my mind yet. So my initial plans have been to keep storybooks separate, the storybooks separate from each other, and I'm currently having a little bit of a hard time finding the benefits of, like, I fear the complexity we would have to merge those two together, and I'm struggling to find the benefits. Like, I get the automated tested approach and all of that, but having automated tests with two different storybooks, that shouldn't be too hard. Like loading up storybook 1 and loading up storybook 2.
Can I pull a stop sign, because I think we are too far in the discussion of the storybook. We have a lot of troubles before that, but yeah,
this is true. Well, I think there's something that's worth highlighting on that trail, which is the main benefit you get from the monorepo is I make a change to one package and I can see its effect on the other packages. And so that's where having one storybook is really helpful, because if I'm changing a button, even though, let's say, automated test caught something, that's great. But at development time, I want to see, I change a GitLab UI component and I want to see that UI component story. And then I want to flip over to the Duo chat story. I want to be able to test in that integration as much as possible. And it's very doable, but yeah, these are just problems. I think the cost is right. These are just problems to solve. My brain's going there. I'm like,
all right, so super.
Let me try to pull you back for a second, because we're almost at time. So
great rename.
I want to pin down the iteration as we just spoke of. So the idea would be to build a monorepo with a symlink to source, and that is therefore kind of pretending that everything stays the same for the current MRs in flight. So that would be iteration 1, you could say. And then iteration 2 would actually be the great rename, and to make the new monorepo folder then become the new source, and we would rename or remove the symlink rather, and then we would kind of be there. Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Okay, so at least I'm on the correct path then. I just need to move the stuff that I've been working on in the Monorepo folder. So that's, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think between 1 and 2 iterations, there would be a lot of verifications on whether the monorepo works with all our processes for releases, for testing, and that kind of stuff. So it's, yeah, iteration 1.1 is probably expected.
Yeah, we will iterate a lot on this for sure. Amazing, folks. Thank you so much for letting me pick your brain on this. This is good stuff, and I am convinced you're gonna be hearing from this approach again, because you will have to. We're going to be there's gonna be breakages, but we will figure it.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be really helpful. I think it's yeah, it's gonna be a task. There's a number of, so moving the files, if we keep the file structure of the GitLab UI package the same, then our npm artifact shouldn't change at all, such that there's some places in our code base where we dip into GitLab UI source, so on, and like, so if we keep the GitLab UI package the same, that should all be good. But doing everything like this, we will break some links, like I think across where we've linked to different parts of code and our, I'm not saying we don't have to do anything about it. I'm just saying like these will show up, like we have links in our comments from GitLab project saying like, oh, or in our docs from, oh, hey, change this file over here. So somehow doing a big multi-project wide grep for that would be interesting. But
it will be just adding packages / GitLab UI.
Yeah.
But that's a good point. Yeah.
But yeah, then the other thing I know you're already thinking about it, but like we really, really want to make sure we just over communicate to all the engineers. This is happening. We're going to do it on this day. Like, so be aware of this. I think that would go a really long way.
Yes, very much so. Just for my understanding, this would be like, this is something that comes into play like before the great rename, right? That would be the right time.
And it's almost like I've gotten the great rename reviewed, but we're gonna wait a week before merging.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. Yeah. But like now it is completely fine to stay under the radar. We're not there yet. That is, yeah, gotcha.
We will, yes, definitely don't talk about it right now. Don't tell anybody.
Not even think about it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And when you communicate it, it's like, hey, we're doing this.
Yeah.
Ready.
That's yeah. You're now one of the inner circle. Gotcha. Folks, this was incredibly helpful. Thank you so much, everybody.
Cool.
Thank you.
Great work. This is really great. I'm so excited about it, and I'm excited the long-term vision of like, oh, we could have other app packages is really cool.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to add, that the Duo chat is supposed not to be the final one, because we've been searching for a solution, I think, with the C dot and other apps to have a more shared feature wise SVGs, all that of stuff. So it would be really awesome to have a single repo, single release cycle for all of them.
Yeah, I see pressure. I see us iteratively moving the entire monolith project into here.
Yeah, easy. Like tomorrow. Yeah. Chaos has fireworks. Like, I should have this done end of weekend. Easy.
Cool. Yeah, that's great.
Awesome. Cool. I'll send you an update on Monday.
Thanks. I'll see you.
I'm glad I ripped off the Band-Aid.
Yeah, it's good. All right.
Good job. Thanks everybody for joining. I'll catch you soon.